Hello, welcome to Silverstone for our build-up to qualifying for tomorrow's Foster's British Grand Prix. We're all very aware of the atrocities in London. There'll be a minute's silence here before the Grand Prix, and no champagne is expected on the podium afterwards. But we have to race on and present the best of British to the rest of the world. Comes home with his first points and grimly determined to reward his balmy army with a place on the podium. Coulthard's won twice here. He's a driver reborn at Red Bull Racing. They've booked him for another year. Championship leader Alonso delighted Renault, particularly team boss Briatore in France. It's 5 wins and counting for the super quick Spaniard. Silverstone, the heart of British motorsport, primed for the 11th round of F1 2005. And hello once again now from the paddock. We were all set for a British sporting celebration here this weekend after securing the 2012 Olympics. Instead, we race on with the London bombings very much in our thoughts. Flags at half-mast throughout Silverstone, this one at the BRDC, the British Racing Drivers Club. The Jordans are running with blackened nose cones. The whole Formula One fraternity send their condolences to everyone who has been touched by the London horrors. Let us get the latest security information now from Ted Kravitz.
Thank you very much, Jim. Yes, down here with the organisers, Richard Phillips first, MD of Silverstone. Did you have to change any of your structures following the bombings in London?
We have a very robust plan here when it comes to security, which we work up with the police. It's been in place for some time, and obviously on Thursday, when we were hearing the sad results of the incident in London, we went to a higher visibility plan. But we have a very, very robust plan because this is a huge international event.
Indeed, it's the biggest event since the bombings in London. Were you concerned at all that things might change and affect the actual racing?
Obviously, we considered this very much on Thursday, but the risk level seems to be quite low, so we didn't think there would be any problem at all.
Okay, Chief Super John Miller of the Northants Police. People have been having their bags searched as they come in. Have you had any reaction from the crowd coming in?
Yeah, fortunately, the reaction's been very positive. People are obviously concerned about safety, and they're anxious that we do all that we can to contribute to the event and to allow them to enjoy it, leave, attend in peace and tranquility. So yeah, it's been a very positive response.
So everyone's felt very safe coming along?
They have. Again, it's positive feedback. It is an intrusion on people, which we're trying to be proportionate about, but again, everybody's concerned about security and safety, and they all want the event to go ahead.
Gents, thank you very much. Back to you, Jim.
Thank you very much indeed, Ted. 70,000 people here, everyone being very sensible. It is business as usual, although the mood is somewhat sombre, as I'm sure you can understand. 5 wins out of 10 mean the 24-point lead for Fernando Alonso over Kimi Raikkonen. Now, Raikkonen has had big problems this morning. We'll tell you about them very shortly. Michael Schumacher third. Watch for an exclusive interview with the world champion in tomorrow's pre-race show. Trulli, fourth for Toyota, then Barrichello, a brilliant Silverstone winner a couple of years ago, the BMW Williams pair, Heidfeld and Webber, Ralf Schumacher and Fisichella, 3 points ahead of David Coulthard. Well, Mark and Tony are with me. Mark, it is a sombre Silverstone, it's a different Silverstone at the moment.
It's a little bit different, Jim. Obviously, you know, it's great tragedy what's gone on over the course of the week here, but everyone's minds are somewhere else, but at the same time we have got sellout crowd here over the course of the weekend, and I think we've got some good entertainment coming on the racetrack.
What changes have you detected here this weekend, Tony?
Well, particularly in the media centre, we've got an international media body who've come through London, a lot of them shocked by the events, and obviously there's been a lot of talk, and they're obviously happy to see the security arrangements that Silverstone has put in place.
Let's talk about events on the track here, and Kimi Raikkonen this morning. Remember, he lost 10 places because of an engine failure in France, and sadly he's been hit once again.
It's unbelievable for Kimi in a way here with the bad luck he's having. It's another engine problem. That means he's obviously going to go 10 spots back on the grid. in some respects, Jim, that's actually a fantastic situation for us because we're going to see this guy come through the pack. He's got the car underneath him, which is really working very, very well.
He's the quickest car here. It's a big, big blow for him, though.
It is a big blow, and reliability is what they need. They need the bulletproof reliability to be able to consistently challenge, and Kimi will be very upset. If you remember when his drive shaft broke in San Marino, he hurled his steering wheel around the garage. He said, I want to be first, not second, as he was in France.
A mishap for David Coulthard as well, but not quite as serious as Kimi's, Mark.
No, DC is going to be in the clear. It seems that he had an electrical failure on the car, had to bring it in and come to a halt, but not a big problem for David. He's been through many things like this before. He'll be focused for qualifying, and hopefully we'll be up there on the front end of the grid where we'd truly like to see him.
Absolutely right. I just want to comment from you, Tony, about a story in one of the tabloids this morning that Jenson Button is heading for Ferrari.
Well, Oliver Holt of the Mirror was with Bernie Ecclestone doing an interview, and Bernie was probably being a little bit mischievous and pepping things up somewhat, suggesting a 20 million deal and perhaps an Englishman could be at the Ferrari. It's very romantic and it's a great dream. You know, the last Englishman there was 89-90 Nigel Mansell, but Rubens Barrichello said that's rubbish. We've both got contracts, me and Michael.
What's your take?
I think Bernie probably ran out of content for the interview and just dreamed of something, because that's not a possibility, I don't think.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much indeed. It is actually David Coulthard, not Jenson Button, who comes here as the top Brit. You might remember David Coulthard had a real battle to find a drive this season in F1, but he's been in outstanding form at Red Bull Racing, and now he has been rewarded with a new contract as well. And David Coulthard, a terrific record here at Silverstone. He has won here twice. He's an ideal Silverstone track guide, really, enjoying back-to-back triumphs in '99 and also in 2000, another textbook drive in the McLaren. Well, DC, he certainly knows his way round here all right.
David, you're a two-times winner here, 99 and 2000. Sum up what Silverstone means to you.
Well, I think that for any driver at the home Grand Prix, there's nothing better than to put on a good show for the home fans. Silverstone, that's where I came in and saw my first Grand Prix back in 1990. So very strong memories to have success here.
Now, you know the track very well, of course. Take us around for a lap.
Okay, well, Silverstone is known to be a high-speed circuit. Here you see going down over the start-finish line, down to Copse Corner, taking one gear down, 6th gear, very fast, running the curb on the exit. Awesome challenge. Probably doesn't look much from the outside, but we run from there straight into one of the best sequences of corners on any track, the Beckett sequence, all taken in 4th gear, and this is the most important part. You can see in this particular lap, a lot of understeer, running wide out onto the curb, and then down onto Hanger Straight.
Okay, what's going through your mind now? You're focusing forward down to Stowe?
Yeah, actually, just checking everything in the cockpit, making sure we're all set up. Stowe is a very fast entry. You can see again in this particular lap, I've got quite a bit of understeer, so I've run wide onto the curb before the big stop down into Club Corner.
That's slightly blind on the way in, isn't it? And then you've got to be quite patient through the second part.
Yeah, you know, we do have traction control in these cars, but there's no point running into all the way out the turn, so you're doing everything you can to be smooth on the exit and release the car.
Abbey Chicane, I love this turn in here.
Yeah, the car today has been working very well, a little bit of understeer on entry, flowing out nicely, and then again down the hill through Bridge Corner, which is taken absolutely flat before the entry to Priory.
Now, a bit frustrating this last complex, or?
It is, because Silverstone's all about high speeds. You know, you probably raced here on the old Grand Prix track, and they've thrown in these two tight hairpins, which were designed to create overtaking, but of course haven't actually done that. But here we have the nice flow out down across the start-finish line, and for us today, not a bad lap.
One of the big stories of this week, you've got a new contract for 2006, which we managed to do between us. In this crazy world of Formula One, I've not stopped to ask you what you think about it, really.
Yeah, that's right. No, I'm delighted to be able to have it announced prior to the British Grand Prix. I think it's the earliest we've ever managed to agree a contract, and I think it just shows the logical steps that Christian Horner is taking in trying to get everything in place to make the first proper Red Bull car next year as well prepared as it can be.
With the Ferrari engine, of course, you must be looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think there is something, there's a nice fit between the Red Bull image and of course the sort of passion and romantic image that goes with Ferrari. So it's a shame it's going to be a V8, which means less power than we've had in the past, but nonetheless we're looking forward to what will hopefully be a close working relationship and at least a compatible engine in terms of horsepower.
Now, this is not an anti-McLaren thing, but everybody comments you're just so much more relaxed, you look so much happier with your driving. Do you think that's affected your on-track performance?
Well, I wasn't unhappy at McLaren. I've got a lot of friends there, but I've been vocal in saying that sometimes it was frustrating to have to move over teammates. I don't think I'm unique to have that frustration, but the reality is here I can say to the team what I'm feeling, and they're very frank with me as well. And at this stage of my career, there's no point wasting time on niceties. We just have to be frank in our views and try and see if we can take it forward.
Hungry as ever?
Absolutely. I love getting out in the car, challenging those fast corners. You know what that's like. It's a very personal reward that you get when you finish a lap and do a good job. And I'm enjoying playing a bigger part in helping bring key elements of the team together. So, this has been a great year so far for me.
Thanks, David.
Well, here's a man with a few good memories of this circuit. Derek Warwick finished 6th here in his last British Grand Prix in a footwork in 1993. Been a while since you were racing. You probably don't want me pointing that out, but have you still got the same enthusiasm for Formula One as you always did have?
I love it. I come here and I'm excited about the motorhomes, the track, the noise, the cars. I stand up at Copse and I watch these guys go through Copse in 6th gear and I think, wow. And earlier on, I found myself at the top of the BIDC suite, just looking down and thinking, I used to do that. I think, how sad is that, No, for me, it's fantastic. I love being here. I love seeing all the old faces and the young faces.
Thank you.
And I have a good time. Bring my mates here and have a good time.
Who's your money on this afternoon? Who do you think it's going to do well?
It was going to be on Raikkonen, but I understand he's got an engine change, so it has to be Alonso. I mean, it's only a 2-horse race. I mean, you look out there, and those two guys are on it. And I think Alonso is really looking good out there. I was going to say Raikkonen, but from where he's going to be 12th, 13th on the grid, maybe 10th, it's going to be hard work.
How do you think Jensen's going to get on?
The car looks fantastic. Over the bumps, it really rides the bumps well. It really handles well. And 3rd quickest this morning. So, I mean, you'd like in your heart, you'd like him to win, because it would be just phenomenal. It'd be great for England at the moment with what's happened at the weekend and stuff. So let's hope that he can do it.
Great to see you.
Yes. And you. Cheers. Bye.
We all hope that. I want to talk to you about David Coulthard, though, Tony. I mean, almost a transformed character this season, as well as a driver.
I put him down as the Renaissance man. I said, how come you're suddenly swearing all of a sudden? Getting rude with everybody. He said,
must be the beard, I guess.
Exactly. The grey bits in his beard. I just think he's tremendous. He's taken on the responsibility of leading the team so well. He's really enjoying himself. He feels for once in his life that the team is built around him and he's not a second fiddle player.
Sure, he knows all the expectation is going Jenson Button's way this weekend. But how much does it mean to a driver when you come to a circuit, you know you go well on it?
It's just a huge thing. I mean, come to your home Grand Prix, Jim, is a massive lift for any driver from the home country, obviously. But I think David coming here already knows he's got next year sorted out. He's got a lot of relaxation about that fact that he's going to be employed next year, and he's going to give it his best shot. But he is a new man, definitely.
Always helps to be happy in your work, doesn't it?
Exactly so, just like all of us.
Absolutely right. OK, now the first of a brand new series in which Martin Brundle unravels the mysteries of a Formula One car. With close to 160 Grand Prix under his belt, Martin certainly knows what he's talking about. He starts with a detailed analysis of the appearance of the cars we follow all over the world.
Why do Formula One cars tend to look the same? There's a standing paddock joke that if you painted them all white and put them in a line, the Formula One team bosses couldn't tell you which one was theirs. Well, hands up. When I'm commentating on a long camera shot, I can get them wrong too, and that's when they're all painted and stick it up. Over the decades, the profile and concept of the cars has changed, and from time to time, there have been some very radical designs. Here are just a few examples. In the 50s, the slippery front-engine cars were fast in a straight line, but were also heavy. Soon the cars were rear-engined and far more nimble. Next, the engine and gearbox would become stressed items and part of the monocoque space frame chassis, and looking far more purposeful. Tyre development continued at an unabated pace. A scary development were the high wings of the late 60s, which looked bizarre and often detached themselves with devastating effect, the first sign of significant aerodynamics. Tyrrell tried a six-wheeler with 4 fronts. March and Williams experimented with 4 rears. Next came the sensational skirted ground effect cars. They had so much grip, the drivers had to adjust their driving styles to new limits. The cars were fast but scarily inconsistent, and they were soon banned, as was the radical Brabham fan car, which tried to recreate the effect. Generally, they're all pretty similar now. First, the fundamentals. The car must have no more than 4 wheels and tyres, which have a maximum width and diameter restriction. Those 4 must be placed external to the bodywork when in plan view. Only 2 may be steered, and only 2 may be driven. The driver must face forward, and he cannot be enclosed or have his feet in front of the axle centre line. The fuel tank has to be between the back of the driver and the front of the engine. The safety cell, which we call the monocoque, is carefully defined in size, and there are 2 templates which must fit through certain parts of the cockpit area. The designer can choose the distance between the front and rear wheels, the wheelbase. Once that's been sorted out, all of the other dimensions are defined as a distance from a number of imaginary lines. That's the front and rear axle centre line, the floor or reference plane, and the centre line of the car. The total width or track of the suspension must not exceed 1.8 metres. And within the wheelbase, the bodywork must not exceed 1.4 metres. To simplify that, I'm going to create boxes to represent the numerous regulations which define the silhouette of the car. The red vertical shading represents the centre line of the car. The blue flat zone is technically the reference plane, but let's call it the floor. Sign up your driver, give him a fuel cell for a rucksack, and throw a few $100 million at the engine and gearbox departments. Now you can bolt on the rear suspension, drive shafts and wheels. We will then install a cooling system, and moving along the car, finally we need a front suspension and steering package. This gives us the rolling mechanical layout of a Formula One car. It doesn't look much until we add the skin or bodywork, which is mostly defined by the rules. The driver safety cell is shown in green and is the backbone of the car. The orange area must be kept clear for the driver. The blue triangle represents a maximum height of the bodywork, which must also be symmetrical. Now for the imaginary rule boxes I mentioned. These are the no bodywork zones, starting with the pink box under the front wing. In the oblong blue boxes, there must be no bodywork, but some suspension is allowed. In the purple and light green areas, again there must be no bodywork or aerodynamic parts other than the rear view mirrors. The critical dark green area in front of the rear wheels is kept clear to help control and reduce downforce. The 6 orange and yellow zones force the designers into a specific rear wing and underfloor shape and position. It's complicated and restrictive, but there's still plenty of nooks and crannies for the designers to apply their trade. Now let's remove those boxes to reveal the finished article. Painted in a single colour, this could be any of today's Formula One cars. Safety is a key factor in the look of the car too. For example, there must be a rollover bar just behind the driver's head. Most of the car will then be crash tested to rigorous levels. For example, the nose will be crammed into a wall and then twisted too. Inevitably, key areas like the side pods will need a certain amount of material to absorb the energy and will therefore look the same. So that's why Formula One cars tend to look so similar, but the beauty is in the exquisite detail where the designers and aerodynamicists use their skills and knowledge in the myriad of small areas where they do have some freedom. It seems, whatever the regulations, they have an effective and elegant solution to the problem.
And next time, Martin will be concentrating on aerodynamics. Give us your views on what you've just seen or any other topic by email at paddock@itv-f1.com. Our website is packed with the latest news and features. That's itv.com/F1, and Martin's in the driving seat on Ask the Team. Well, we run a competition on every Grand Prix weekend. The Williams drivers, Nick Heidfeld and Mark Webber, they're standing by after Ted's given you the answer to last weekend's competition.
Well, last week we gave 3 lucky people the chance to win £1,000 worth of quality Eden Park merchandise. And the winners who knew that Magny-Cours hosts the French Grand Prix are Raymond Hearn from Wigan, Glenn Coulter from Stranraer, and John Knight from Kings Lynn. Well, now you've won the shirts off our backs, it's an opportunity to win some of the drivers' gear. Mark, what can they win?
Well, they can win this shirt signed by myself and Nick, which is obviously incredible. We've got 2 to give away, and they can also win a fantastic behind-the-scenes tour at the Williams factory, courtesy of RBS.
OK, for the question, Mr. Nick Heidfeld.
Yeah, in 55 years. Which circuit has hosted the most British Grand Prix? Is it A, Silverstone, B, Brands Hatch, or C, Aintree?
Thanks, Nick. That question again. Which circuit has hosted the most British Grand Prix? Is it A, Silverstone, B, Brands Hatch, or C, Aintree? To enter, call 0901 293 2020 or text F1 followed by your answer of A, B or C to 63337. Calls cost £1, texts also cost £1 plus the standard network rate, and lines close this coming Thursday.
Thanks very much indeed, Ted. It's warming up nicely here. I think we're in for a very pleasant afternoon temperature, 20 degrees and no sign at all of any rain. Nick Heidfeld, by the way, will be out 7th in qualifying. Webber 9th on track. When you rejoin us, we'll hear from Max Mosley, the president of the governing body, the FIA. Max Mosley remaining defiant under fire.
What's nice is to all get together and say, it's Max doing this, he's caused all the problems. The truth is, if they left to their own devices, they'd be at each other's throats.
Back with us at sunny Silverstone, British Racing headquarters. Coming up, there's the scrap for the best places on the grid for tomorrow's British Grand Prix. Now we're going to hear from the FIA president, Max Mosley. It's fair to say he isn't winning too many popularity polls with most of the drivers and teams in this paddock at the moment. Here is Max Mosley talking to Ted.
First question, if I can, about Indianapolis and the race that never was. Do you regret that a common sense solution was never found?
The chicane, which was the suggestion of the teams, was simply not an option for us. The lawyers would never let us do it, quite apart from the sporting problems. So that was never on the agenda. And where it went wrong is the teams, once they understood that, should have got their team managers. They're the real professionals, not the team principals, the team managers, the real professionals who run the teams. They should have sat down with the race director, Charlie Whiting, and found a solution. That never happened because, unfortunately, the teams went stubbornly on with this chicane, ignoring the fact that it just wasn't something we could do. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't do it.
And how do you explain the fact that some people seem still to blame you for not having a race?
I think that's quite natural. I think if you're running the sporting body and something goes seriously wrong at one of the sporting events, the first person you turn to is the people running the sporting body. What went wrong was a failure really of the teams to understand that we meant it when we said there cannot be a chicane. That was the fundamental reason. But I quite understand fans looking to me and saying, there's a problem, you should solve it.
Well, on that topic, Max, if I can move to the first of our questions from some people in the paddock, random people in the paddock.
All you seem to want to do with Mr. Eccleston is just play politics with our sport. What we want is wheel-to-wheel racing, and we want the likes of Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell racing wheel-to-wheel down the Hangar Straight.
He's absolutely right, and unfortunately at the moment, with the Concord Agreement, various relations, things we have to do and we have to go through with the teams. 2008 it's finished, and we can do the rules, and we're doing them at this very moment, and then he's going to get his wheel-to-wheel racing because the teams are not going to interfere.
What is your vision for the future of Formula One? What do you want?
More overtaking, closer racing, 24 cars, not just 20, continually improving safety, and really interesting cars and technology, all the things that people want. And we will get wheel-to-wheel racing.
You can guarantee that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, Max, a year and a week ago you resigned. Now you're having all sorts of trouble. Is this what you call fun? You should have stayed resigned.
When I decided to retire last summer, it's because I was completely fed up with the sort of meetings we were having in the Formula One Commission. And you get up in the morning and think, what am I doing this for? You know, it's not a paid job. You do it because you want to do something for the sport. But then, of course, you get a situation where things really need doing, and you can't just walk away.
There does seem to be a dissatisfaction with the job you're doing at the moment. What's your reaction to that?
What the teams like or don't like doesn't really, with all respect to them, doesn't matter. They don't elect me, and they came into our Formula One World Championship, which we, the FIA, started 50 years ago because it suited them. And if it doesn't suit them anymore, they can go and run a private series. We would allow them to do that. It wouldn't impede them in any way. But if they want to be in the Formula One World Championship, it's the FIA's Formula One World Championship, not the teams. And they will do it on the terms of the FIA. And the president of the FIA will be somebody who's elected by the 122 countries which belong. And if the teams don't like it, it's very blunt, it's too bad.
Hi Max, it's great to be here at Silverstone. Do you ever come out and watch your racing from the stands?
I watch it on television like a normal punter, but I can't say I've sat in the grandstand since the 80s. I have done it, but not recently. I watch it on television, almost all of them I watch on television. I like the way they do it in the States, where they have hundreds of thousands of seats, and you get in for $15 if you want. That's reasonable.
I've run go-karts since I'm a 6-year-old boy, and you know, I've always dreamed of Formula One with the slicks.
We're going to go to slicks in 2008, but in order to do that, we've got to take an enormous amount of the downforce off. We do need slicks, we need wider tyres, we don't need downforce. But if we have the combination of downforce and slicks, the speeds go through the roof. So we've got to get rid of the downforce, back to the slicks, and we'll get more overtaking, closer racing.
Well, Max, thanks very much for talking to us. And I understand on the grid on Sunday we're going to have a 1-minute silence.
Well, I think it's a world sporting event being watched all over the world, and everyone's conscious of the terrible events in London. And I think the least we can do is to recognise this and everybody to show their sympathy for the victims and their families. And that's really the only way we can do it.
Absolutely right. We're not expecting any champagne to be sprayed either. But what about the driver's viewpoint on what Mr. Mosley was saying there?
I think actually all of the drivers have got a huge amount of disappointment that they didn't get to entertain the crowd in the US Grand Prix. I find it a little bit of a struggle listening to Max Mosley. I've been in 2 Grand Prix myself where overnight we've put a chicane in to solve the solution of safety. And I've raced in the States for 5 years and we never had any issues about legal problems back then. And, you know, we know that the US is a liable place, but we always got a solution to make sure we entertain TV audience and the spectators.
He's saying very strongly there, if the teams don't like it, they can go and race somewhere else.
Yeah, a major concern to all of us here is that the division is now getting greater, and the Gang of Seven, the manufacturers, had their own separate meeting in Munich on Wednesday. They're not only discussing their own blueprint for the future, but apparently they're also looking for a candidate to go against Max Mosley in the FIA elections later this year.
You see, he says the teams can't organise anything. They're good at rowing, but they can't organise anything collectively.
Well, you know, Max has got one brain. There's several brains down this pit lane, and they're quite clever people, and I do believe that they could put something together and put it together very, very well.
Just quickly, Tony, it didn't look like a man who was thinking about resigning there.
No, he's really dug his heels in now. He's determined to fight on and get his own way. He said, this is the FIA's championship. We make the rules, and if you don't want to take part, go and do something else.
Change of topic. What's your house like?
It's quite neat and tidy.
Really? A bit of nice carpet?
Lovely carpet.
Yeah? A bit of hoovering, someone goes around for you?
Not me, the wife.
Yeah, but a typical sort of F1 or ex-F1 driver's lifestyle?
Kind of.
OK. Take a look at these two, because the height of luxury, it ain't.
This waterside development about an hour from Silverstone might seem a far cry from Monaco, where lots of the drivers live. The weather's not the same for starters, but 2 of the sport's rising stars have recently set up home here.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the house of Tonio and Christian. This one is our living room, where, as you can see, we didn't put so much in because we had not that much time in the house, even if it's like 1 month that we have it, but this is all we need at the moment. We've got this couch. It doesn't look quite comfortable, but it is actually. It's really, we love the color, I love the frame, I love everything of this. It looks very nice, fits very good to your trousers. Hello. So we are here now in the kitchen. It's a real racing kitchen. If you look on the floor, it's a checkered flag. Now you can have a look in the fridge. I think you will find not a lot. This one, I think it's to clean, you know, yeah, the dishes. And so. I thought it was for the trousers. Okay, welcome to my room. It's really can clearly see there is nothing in here. I just have a pillow and a duvet at the moment. Nice bed. But wait, today I think my new bed should arrive, so they deliver it today, and then we will get big eyes. Delivering the bed? Good, we are here now.
Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle
to the right? Yeah. From the floor to the heaven. I spend a little bit more time here in my room. I try to make it as nice as possible. And yeah, 2 weeks ago when we were been in Indianapolis, I've been 4 days in New York, and I love the town. That's the place to be as well. This one brings luck, and this luck, I think, that helped me in the night. So when we are in England, we spend some time here, and I guess in the future we'll have a lot of fun in this couple of rooms. And you have been the first guest here, so we didn't sleep in our one, and I hope that someone else will do it soon. You hope.
I hate to think what they will do on their own to that particular house. They need help badly. McLaren could probably do with a bit of help as well. Poor Kimi Räikkönen, if you're just joining us, he will be minus 10 places on the grid after the second engine failure in consecutive Grand Prix. The very latest news from Ted Kravitz.
Indeed, Jim, yes, you join us down here at the McLaren garage, and all their hopes, all the hopes of the people in Woking now rest on this man. I don't know if you can see him in there. It's Juan Pablo Montoya. Now, Jim, let me just tell you first of all what happened to Raikkonen's car. They saw on the telemetry a spike on the crankcase pressure. Now, that really means that either there's a hole in the piston or a hole in the cylinder. Whatever, they knew it was an engine failure. So now, what do they do with Montoya? Well, that's the question. He can actually go light. Their plan at the moment, we think, is that he's going to go light, try and wrap up the pole position, and then control the race from there, allowing Kimi to work his way back through the field. An interesting idea, we'll find out soon enough, but he looks in the mood for a bit of pole action, don't you think?
Certainly Kimi Räikkönen gave it a great charge through the field in Manicourt last weekend. That was where Jenson Button scored his first points of the season. Jenson will be going 17th in the upcoming qualifying session, and his dad now, John, is with Louise.
Yeah, one of the men we're going to be keeping a close eye this afternoon. Jenson Button is currently in the office, you can see, final preparations for the Grand Prix. So if we can't talk to Jenson, we've got the next best thing, his dad, John. John, how is Jenson this weekend? He must be particularly fired up for this race.
Oh yeah, it's amazing for him. The only problem is there is so much media interest, and so that gets to him a bit, but I think he'll move up another notch being a home Grand Prix. So.
What's it done for him getting that fourth place result in France? I mean, other than the fact obviously it means he's starting earlier in qualifying, has it pumped him up a bit as well?
Well yeah, it's pumped him up, it's pumped the whole team up. It's the year's been crazy, and to get those points on the board, it was though they on the podium. It's incredible. It's good spirit in the team. Lots of friends and family here this weekend, I know. How do you think Jenson's going to get on? Is he going to get a good result for them this afternoon? Yes, he will get a good result. Where we don't know yet. It's so difficult with the way it is now, with fuel loads and everything else. But as you said, he's pumped up, and he'll get the best out of the car, and the team will get the best out of the car. No problem. I think it's going to be entertaining. Thanks, John. Yeah, right. Thank you. Bye.
John Button hoping for entertainment, and so do we all. A little word about JB, about Jenson Button there. Are you surprised at his tone, Mark? He's coming here saying, don't expect me to win the Grand Prix because I won't do it. That's strange to me.
I think he's just trying to take a little bit of pressure off himself, because as his father said there is a lot of media attention around him, and I think he's just trying to calm it down. I don't think he's really got the car underneath him to get pole, but I'd love to see him on the podium, and I'd love to see him win, but I don't think it's quite possible for this race.
Right, 70,000 in here today. It's 100,000 sell out tomorrow, Tony. I mean, any event that any sportsman takes part in, surely you've got to believe you can win it.
But I agree with Mark to an extent, because he didn't want to let the fans down. He didn't want an air of expectation, him coming here that he'd got to win. It's a huge pressure, and he's had a terrible year so far. He just wanted to be realistic and say, look, I can aim for the podium, but I don't think the car is capable of much more than that at the moment, especially after he did the last test, and that's what he felt, and he's being very honest about it. And I think a lot of the teams like Renault and Alonso as well was pushing that pressure back onto McLaren and saying, they're the guys who can really win.
Well, Tony, thank you very much indeed. All sorts of famous faces around at Silverstone. Supermodel Jodie Kidd is in action today, not on the catwalk, but in the Maserati Challenge. And Jodie, a very competitive individual. We've already seen her racing around Monza, Imola and Barcelona. This weekend, she's teamed up with a Silverstone winner as well. Back to Louise.
Some people just cannot stay away from racing cars. Look who I bumped into here, former British Grand Prix winner Johnny Herbert. Johnny, what are you doing here this weekend?
I'm having a little go here with Jodie.
Introduce us to your teammate.
This is Jodie.
This is Josie, as it says on my pass.
Yes.
I'd like to say.
I'm Johnny Herbert.
Herbert.
I've got my name a bit wrong as well. So anyway, we're new people this weekend. We're in a new situation. We've never driven together. I've never driven one of these cars, although I did 3 laps in Monza last year, and obviously Jodie's had a bit of experience.
I've done 5 races now with them.
So presumably, Jodie, you're teaching Johnny everything you know and giving him a few tips about how to drive one of these Maseratis?
Yes, of course. Everything I know, which is zilch. It's the first time round Silverstone, so he's giving me all the help I need.
Is he behaving himself?
No.
Some things never change. How do you think you get on, Johnny?
It's going to be difficult. Again, she's done, what, 4 laps, I think it was,
4
so
laps.
far. And it's something that it's not an easy track to learn. She hasn't been on the track ever before. She hasn't been on a PlayStation either, even to learn it that way, which is always very useful. So she's got quite an uphill struggle, and hopefully I can help out.
Well, have fun, both of you. I have to say, you've grown a bit since I last saw you, Johnny.
Yeah, I think it's just the age thing. I'm sort of maturing as things go on, which is nice.
Bernie Ecclestone telling it as it is to 3 Formula 1 runners. Kevin Easton of the Times on the right there. Bob McKenzie with his back to us. He'll be running around Silverstone for charity, by the way, next weekend. And a smile and a joke. Did they get any information out of him? Goodness only knows. Well, last weekend, Hyde Park, Live 8. This weekend, Silverstone. That's the story for Nick Mason and Pink Floyd.
Yeah, Jim's just been mentioning you were live on stage at Live 8 last weekend. Must have been fantastic.
It was terrific, really exciting.
This is actually a stage that you're more used to being on, isn't it? A racing circuit, a very avid racer yourself.
Yes, I am. No, it's great, and this is really the sort of high point of the English season, I think.
So who are you rooting for? Who's your money on this afternoon?
There are all sorts of people I'd like to see do well. I mean, I'm just really enjoying the competition, and I think we'll have to see in qualifying who's really looking good. I mean, I think it will be really between Kimi and Alonso. But I'd love to see David Coulthard do well, and I mean, there's also, and Jensen. I mean, there's almost, you'd like to see everyone do well.
Thanks for talking to us. Nice to see you here.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Louise. Yes, down here, back at McLaren with Pedro de la Rosa. Pedro, you drove this McLaren yesterday. You were quickest, in fact. Is this the best Formula 1 car you've ever driven around here?
Oh, by far. I mean, the fact that I was yesterday quickest, but I was driving, the lap time was just coming easily. You know, I was not driving 200%. I was just trying to be consistent on the lap times to get as maximum, the long runs, as maximum consistency as possible. So, easy car to drive, and it's just so much easier when a car is good.
How's Kimi taking the 10th place knockback?
He's okay. I mean, he just over-revved a little bit at the beginning, and then now he's quite calm. He knows that he did it in Magny Cours. He had the same problem, and then he came back strongly and finished second. So I think he's now okay and fully focused for qualifying. His finish, you know, he's very, very cool.
Thanks, Pedro.
Ron Dennis there. Christian Klein is off and running for Red Bull Racing. It is qualifying for tomorrow's Foster's British Grand Prix. Let us join your commentators, Martin Brundle, and say a very good afternoon to James Allen.
Hi, Jim. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Silverstone 2005. Christian Klein just warming up for his flying lap. Well, if I tell you that pole here at Silverstone has only been translated into victory twice in the last 10 years, it tells you a bit about Silverstone. It's a track you can overtake on. It's a difficult circuit, a technical circuit. Tactics and events in the race can change everything. And we've already seen the pitch changing very quickly. Kimi Raikkonen and McLaren looking completely dominant in free practice. And then this morning, Raikkonen losing an engine for the second time in 2 weekends during the free practice session. He will have to go back 10 places on the grid. It's a big setback for him. but such is the speed he's got in that car, it'll make for a tremendous race tomorrow as he comes through to challenge Alonso. Christian Klein then goes across the start-finish line. It's a high-speed circuit here, Silverstone, 3.19 miles, 17 corners, some of them the most famous high-speed corners in Formula One. The Formula One car covers a mile in just 20 seconds around here, and this is one of the most exciting sections here, the Beckett's complex. And Martin, it's a special feeling going for a flying lap around Silverstone.
Yes, Klein, we saw having a new bed delivered, so he'll be sleeping a little bit better this week, but nonetheless worrying about being first out today, because the track has had other runners on it as ever and will be to a certain extent an unknown quantity. A racetrack's a living thing. It changes as the various cars take to it and the weather conditions. Klein, the first man to retire at the French Grand Prix last weekend. The double whammy of that, the extra penalty, is then having to run early in qualifying. He's the man out there exploring the racetrack and trying to eke a complete lap out of those Michelins, but they have been hanging on reasonably well.
Well, fastest time this morning in free practice, a 1:20 flat for Fernando Alonso in the Renault. Christian Klein did a 21 flat, so just a second off the pace for Red Bull Racing. Been a decent season for Klein, sharing the drive, of course, with Liuzzi. 3 points finishes so far, and he's 3-all in the races he's contested with David Coulthard. Seems to have kept it all reasonably tidy, using all the track and then a little bit more as well as he goes across the start-finish line to give us an indication of what the track's doing. And it's, well, it's 1.2 seconds slower than he was this morning.
I think what they're finding, certainly at Red Bull and most of the Michelin runners, they bolt a new set of tyres on where you'd normally expect to go faster. You get extra traction, extra rear grip, but it tends to mean the front sliding across the track, and you really do have to be on the right line with these very high-speed corners. So I think Klein will be moderately satisfied with that, but this morning he did a 21 flat on old tyres, so not the absolute potential of that car. Felipe Massa out for Sauber.
We do see them changing strategy, of course, saying go for a fuel load in free practice and perhaps put a little bit more in for qualifying, knowing they're compromised with an early slot. Massa too retired from the French Grand Prix. And interestingly, he's been outperformed by Jacques Villeneuve, his teammate, for the last 2 Grand Prix, so he needs a big result here this weekend. It's 7-3 in qualifying this season to Massa, but Villeneuve on the up at the moment.
When you imagine coming up to corners at over 200 miles an hour, getting your bar laid right back and look across the taps, that's the view a driver's got across it's like looking out of a bathtub, across a little screen, some aerials, and in fact there's so little space in there. When he puts quite a bit of lock on the steering wheel, his hand is in the way of his visibility too. If you watch when he turns into this corner, it is actually quite difficult to pick out your reference point at a high speed, quite flat circuit like this. Into Bridge Corner.
Yeah, exciting corner bridge, 150 miles an hour as they plunge under the bridge and make that right-hander. Then into the complex now, Priory, Brooklands, Luffield, and into the great Woodcote corner as well. How do you evaluate this guy's season?
I think he's done okay. I think he's been pretty solid through the year. He's an 8 out of 10 man as far as I'm concerned in terms of more maturity, calmed his driving style down on the steering wheel, that got into a bit of a habit of stabbing away on the throttle pedal, and surprisingly he's gone slower than Klein. I expected him to be a bit quicker than the Red Bull.
Yeah, just recently the Sauber does seem to have been a little bit faster than the Red Bull and been racing against Williams as well. Williams having a few problems at the moment, as we'll be hearing later on. Here's Patrick Friesacker in the Minardi, and Ted Kravitz has some news about him.
And it's an evil handling Minardi, I'm sorry to say. Friesacker's had turn-in understeer and then to power oversteer on the exit. The back of the car's been threatening to break away in the high-speed corners, Martin. They changed the rear suspension. They'd rather give him understeer and have him not fly off the road.
Yeah, that's the worst case scenario, where you've got a bit of understeer and a bit of oversteer, because the breakaway, the snap point where it changes over, you always have to wait for it and adjust your driving, adjust your corner entry speed, and you're driving every metre of the tarmac instead of looking down the road. You go slower and slower and slower.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that will affect the drivers here. The wind is still fairly gusty, but not as strong as it was this morning in free practice, but the track temperature has gone up 10 degrees since the end of the pre-practice session, and that's something that they'll have to have considered and made changes to the car. We saw in France last weekend how Ferrari were caught out on race day because the conditions got much, much hotter and the car handled completely differently.
Well, the wind speed's 2.2 meters per second. Not sure whether that's good, bad or indifferent, but what I do know is that it's right into the tail of the cars, turning in to Beckett and turning into Stowe, two of the most critical areas of the racetrack, and they will lose downforce. They get less downforce in those conditions, so that may affect lap times. Maybe giving us a bit of understanding of why we're not seeing such fast times as we expected.
Yeah, the sessions have been slower at the start. Frisacker then just over 3 seconds behind. How do you evaluate his season?
Difficult to know. You can stand out in a Minardi. Paul Stoddart there has given a lot of young drivers a great flying start in Formula One. Alonso, of course. Mark Webber would be another one. Frisacker, I'd have to look at him at a 6 or 7 out of 10, probably a 6 out of 10 so far this season.
Well, he's 6'4" up against this man, his teammate Christian Albers, in qualifying so far this season. Certainly Frisacker's year has been blighted by retirements, 6 retirements in the Grand Prix. Albers on 1 points finish, of course, for both the drivers at Indianapolis, where only 6 cars took part. This young man stepped out of touring cars to come into Formula One. It's always been his dream, and some people would say to move from a winning touring car situation into a back-of-the-grid Formula One is a mistake, but he's enjoying himself, and so far trying to match up with Frisacker.
Yeah, as Jackie Stewart would say, looks like he's trying to hang wallpaper on a windy day with the window open as he's churning away on the steering wheel. And there is that turn-in understeer, the front slides, and then snap oversteer. Turn-in oversteer, turn-in understeer, power oversteer on the exit. Horrible conditions and difficult to change the car for, fundamentally. You can do it, takes a long time.
What about a first half-term report for him as we enter the second half of the season, riding on board with Christian Albers? How have you evaluated him?
About the same as Frisacker. I think a couple of times he's really stood out as being very fast, but Frisacker too, so I guess you'd have to say 6 out of 10.
Certainly 1 or 2 of his qualifying performances have caught the eye. Always very difficult these days when they carry race fuel in qualifying to evaluate just how good everyone's been, because every 10 kilos of fuel around a track like this is worth about 0.3 of a second. Across the line then goes Christian Albers to go 3rd in front of Frisacker, and that makes it 6.5 in qualifying to Frisacker. So Albers has got 1 back.
And by a second, a solid and complete second too, is he ahead of his teammate. So a very good effort there from Albers. Didn't look a particularly great lap. He was on the dirt at 1 point, but clearly made the best of a bad job.
Now here's a fellow with some pressure on his shoulders. Teammate Kimi Raikkonen really came here hoping for the victory. McLaren certainly expecting to win. They've been very strong here indeed. Tactically, they now have to think very carefully, because Alonso will be going out last here, Raikkonen second to last. The conditions will be ideal at that point, but from Raikkonen has got to take a 10-place drop on the grid, so he needs Montoya to be involved in Alonso's race tomorrow, whatever happens, because Raikkonen will for sure come through the field from 11th, 12th, wherever he ends up. Look how much faster Montoya is already. We heard Ted thinking that maybe Montoya might go out and grab the pole, whatever, but certainly he will want to be with Alonso on the grid tomorrow. That's really important.
Well, Raikkonen started 5 places behind him last weekend in France and still beat him to the end of the Grand Prix. Montoya, an early retirement with technical problems. But as you say, he's got to get this car onto the front row of the grid. And they look like they were a long way away from finishing Raikkonen's car off too, to get it ready for his qualifying effort later on. But the McLaren has been supremely fast around here.
Certainly has, and look at this, 1.4 seconds faster than Christian Klien already. This is going to be a lap in the 1:20 range. It could be a low 1:20 as we saw this morning. That would certainly put Montoya right in the hunt for pole position here. Hasn't had one so far in 2005. Across the line he goes out of the famous Woodcote corner, 150, 160 miles an hour, a 1:20.382, and that is very fast lap indeed from Juan Pablo Montoya. Adrian Newey seems pleased with it, and that's given everyone something to think about. So first 5 out, Montoya quickest at the moment. Welcome back to Silverstone, British Grand Prix qualifying for tomorrow's big event. There's Kimi Raikkonen, who's going to have to drop 10 places on the grid after a forced engine change. Free practice this morning. He was bang favourite for this race, and now he's certainly going to make a spectacle of it tomorrow. Fastest at the moment is Juan Montoya as Narain Karthikeyan goes across the start-finish line, still using the old Jordan, the one they started the season with. There is an updated model on its way, the EJ15B. It's been used in practice, but not yet considered race-worthy. 1 or 2 reliability glitches. On board then with the hyper-energetic Narain Karthikeyan. Certainly made a big impression at the start of the season. Done a lot of racing around Silverstone in British Formula 3, amongst other things, and his early season good. He's 6-4 up against teammate Montero in qualifying. Only one top 10 finish so far this season, Martin. Obviously at Indianapolis, where only the 6 Bridgestone runners took the race. And how do you feel his first half season's gone?
I thought he was sensational in the beginning. Then he seemed to lose his way around Monaco time. A bit of trouble within the team as well, I sense, with the senior personnel in the team. So you sense Narain is struggling a bit to keep his head focused. But overall, I think he's impressed. And certainly a solid 7 out of 10 for me.
What about Montoya? We didn't get marks out of 10 for him.
Montoya, difficult season, and not always made the best of a bad situation, but he's an 8 for me, Montoya. Solid, fast from time to time, but really been overshadowed by Kimi Räikkönen.
So Jordan then, their factory base, you can almost see it at the top of your picture in that helicopter shot. It's just a few hundred yards behind the main grandstand here at Silverstone, where they've been based ever since Eddie Jordan started the team back in the early 90s. Carter Kayan then crosses the line 3.2 seconds slower than the pace setter Montoya at the moment. That is the top 6 of the 6 cars who have gone out so far. So the two Minardis are buried in the 24s and 25s. Carter Kayan is in the mid 1:23s, and Montoya fastest on a 1:20.3. That's Mario Tyson, the boss of BMW. They've announced they're pulling away from Williams next year. Tell you, one of the funniest things I've seen for a long time was him dancing to Do You Know the Way to Amarillo last night at the Grand Prix ball. A German engineer being shown the moves of Peter Kay on the dance floor. It was a hoot.
What is not a hoot, though, is the way they're performing at the moment. They're really struggling away, aren't they, in terms of pace for some reason with the new aerodynamic pieces, such that my understanding is Heidfeld's car is fully to the previous specification in the middle of a Grand Prix weekend. That's a significant situation.
Yeah, so they're doing effectively a back-to-back test of the car they had before France with the car they took to France, and which didn't work, which wasn't quick enough, and long faces all round. So effectively, with so little time available to test at the moment, Grand Prix back-to-back. Big mistake there for Heidfeld going into the Abbey Kink, and effectively they're having to do that testing at a Grand Prix weekend.
That's despite hundreds, if not thousands, of laps of pre-season testing here, all gone to waste as they had to revert. But Heidfeld struggling with the car a bit. Once again, a Michelin runner with some understeer on fresh tyres. The car beginning to come to him now. He did have a slip back there at Club Corner. And this is a little bit frustrating, these last 2 corners. Once again, not quite getting the nose where he wanted it, and so much traction control as he listened to it. He's cutting half the power out of the engine until it fully straightens up. Not much to do now until he crosses the line now, and he goes second, a fraction ahead of Klein in the Red Bull. Ted has further news.
Well, I'm down at Williams, and I was talking to Sam Michael, the technical director of Williams, earlier. He was calling these teething problems. He says, we know what's wrong on the car, but it's taking some time to fix it. But as you say, a bizarre situation. Sam left it up to the drivers to decide which chassis they go with. Heidfeld went with what he knows, even if the computer, Martin, says this is slower. But Mark Webber is trusting the wind tunnel figures, trusting what the computer tells him, and has stayed with the new aerodynamic package on the chassis. So, as you say, bizarre situation.
Very much looks like somebody's trying to make a point there, doesn't it, James? And teeing up a bit of data to prove or disprove something.
Yeah, certainly. There's been a lot of work. There's Montero coming in. He's the next man out, but he's done a reconnaissance lap, but he's coming straight into the pits. He had an engine change yesterday, so whatever happens, he was going to go back 10 places on the grid, and I guess that he's decided not to do the lap. Ted Kravitz, can you tell us what's going on?
Yes, no, he's just gone straight into the Parc Fermé, and that is because, as you say, the engine, because you get more of a benefit on the new tyres on the Bridgestones, which is what the Jordan is running. But very concerned, very annoyed, actually, they were at Jordan, because, James, it was a failure in the pneumatic air system on this Toyota engine of Montero's yesterday. And, you know, they've had exactly the same problem before. They had it with Carter Kayan in Monaco, so they were extremely irritated that they had that problem reoccur.
There's the second Williams going out of Mark Webber. That's his father Alan there, and the striped shirt on the left comes all the way from Australia to support him in Grand Prix.
We're getting a bit behind on our marks out of 10, aren't we? Heidfeld would be a 9 for me. Friesaka down there, he made the best of the Indianapolis situation, the man to get on the podium, so he would be a solid 7. Louise is with Juan Pablo Montoya.
Juan Pablo, that looked like a great lap. You couldn't really have dragged much more out of that car, could you?
Maybe a little bit more in the first You know, went through the first corner. I thought, you know, wind picked up a bit. I was a little bit careful in. Went in and the grip felt like this morning. I thought, oh, that's good. You know, I lost a bit of time. And then when I went into Beckett, it was the same as before, you know, in the last session. The grip had kind of come back to standard, and it just went in the same and turned left, and it's like, whoa, all the grip gone. So, you know, it's lost a little bit of time there for, I think, probably against the last few runners, but the rest of the lap was pretty good, you know, pushed like hell, and you know, I think the qualifying is really important here, and I think it would be pretty good.
Do you think that time can be beaten?
Yeah. I'm realistic.
Thanks.
Pole sitter here in 2002, and what he's explaining there is, okay, we haven't been in the car for 2-3 hours now, and suddenly we've got to go out and find out where the track's at, and there's no quarter given. The first 2 turning points here are over 190 miles an hour, and that's what he's saying. I went through it on, I felt it was okay, and went to the second section, and that was okay too. Then I realised I could get on with it, but it's too late by then. I've given up for 10 for 2, and that's why he expects the time to be beaten.
Just remind you, the two Williams doing different things. Mark Webber in the upgraded car, Nick Heidfeld in the old car. We saw him making that mistake at Club Corner, cost him a little bit of time. He's second fastest at the moment. Here is Webber then. He's got a very nasty burn on his hip, the size of a couple of tennis balls from where he was injured during the French Grand Prix. They've just overheated in the cockpit. Look at the speed through the Beckett's complex. 156 the early part of it, carrying over 130 through the middle of it, and then out onto the hangar straight. One of the most scintillating moments in any of Formula One racetrack.
Yeah, all he did was just a brief lift of the throttle on the way in, just for the sake of his heart, into the Becketts. They're absolutely sensational, so not too much wrong with his balance. He is so good on these one-lap situations, and he seems to have just so much confidence, doesn't he, to take straight into that. This lap is working quite nicely so far.
Yeah, the Williams guys say the reason why Mark Webber is so good at this is because he's got a really good feeling for the car, for the grip, where the grip is in an uncertain situation. They haven't driven these cars for a few hours. The track temperature's gone up by 10 degrees, as I said, and Webber just has the confidence. He can feel the grip on the outlap and have enough confidence to commit on his flying lap. That's what marks him out as a particularly fine single lap qualifier.
He's about a 10th up on his teammate in the different specifications, BMW Williams, and just this final long right-hander to go. And he's short-shifted to try to get better grip, better traction, less traction control. Did it pay him any benefits at all? Goes over the line, and he's second by 2/10 faster than his teammate. So there's the answer to which Williams will be better around Silverstone in qualifying.
Yep, yes, we did see Heidfeld make that mistake, so the answer is slightly blurred, but I completely agree with you. It's certainly what it seems. And what about marks out of 10 for Webber this season?
Well, you have to say that Heidfeld slightly outshone him in race conditions. Mark's been supreme in single lap, so he's an 8.5 for me.
Well, here's a man who's had a very difficult season, to say the least, Takuma Sato. No points finishes yet in the first half of the year, not even a top 10 finish. And he's 1-6 down to Jenson Button in qualifying. Obviously, BAR have had their share of problems with the 2-race ban following the problems at Imola, but it's not really worked this year for Taku, has it?
It must have been so difficult for both BAR drivers to keep their heads straight and stay focused on the job they have to do. And Taku seems particularly to have been destabilised, doesn't he, with the ban and various incidents. And he's a little more than a 7 at the moment. He's really got to get his year back on track.
Well, his lap is on track to sort of match Nick Heidfeld, who's currently 3rd fastest. BAR would certainly expect to be racing against the BMW Williams team here. And his middle sector is faster than Heidfeld, so if he can keep this going, it might well put him up to 2nd or 3rd place. If he has a strong final sector, he might even be able to knock Webber out of 2nd place. Sato has a lot of experience here, a former British Formula 3 champion, of course, a multiple winner in Formula 3, a very dominant season for him. He knows this track like the back of his hand, and he goes across, and he does indeed knock Mark Webber down, and not by a little either. He's done it by 0.8 of a second. A terrific lap then for Takuma Sato, and that's 0.8 slower than Juan Montoya in 2nd place. Montoya fastest then, Sato 2nd, Webber 3rd, Heidfeld 4th, Klein 5th, Massa 6th, Cardican 7th, and Albers in 8th place.
Yes, Jensen's looking at it thinking, okay, that set me a target he can beat, but he'll need a pretty solid lap, because that was a good effort from Takuma Sato, and definitely thrown down the gauntlet to his teammate Jenson Button. Coasting back in, top gear, no throttle, a little more than tick over. He needs to save that fuel to take it into tomorrow's Grand Prix.
One of the things we've seen in free practice, Martin, is that the Michelin tyre, which most of these runners are using, has not been holding on particularly well towards the end of the flying lap, and yet the paradox is getting some temperature into it has also been a struggle for a number of the cars. I think they've been helped a little bit by the track temperature coming up this afternoon, but nevertheless, it's always very difficult to find the right balance, isn't it, going into it, when you've got to commit so much in qualifying.
Yes, because you're asking for a tyre that's good on one flying lap straight out of the box, but that will also get you through the 60 laps of the Grand Prix. And that's asking a lot for, you know, the absolute ultimate performance. We're looking back at the various incidents and action from the qualifying so far, and well, Montoya then, with the sort of lap time we were expecting in the low 1:20, that's going to give him a solid grid position anyway, but like him, I'd be surprised if it's pole position, but I don't think it was too shabby in the low 1:20s.
Well, Silverstone, as ever, very popular. It's a sellout for tomorrow's Grand Prix. 100,000 people committing to come here and support the pinnacle of British motorsport year. It's a wonderful festival. Helicopters flying in from all over the place, and interestingly, the FIA released some survey results this week saying that Silverstone is the third most popular track in the world amongst sports fans. Over 100,000, almost 100,000 people took part in the survey. Monaco and Spa coming out on top, Silverstone close behind. So for a track that struggles to make it onto the calendar each year, that really is saying something. Louise Goodman has found another driver. I believe it's Nick Heidfeld.
Nick, there are clearly some issues with the new aerodynamic package that made its debut at the French Grand Prix. You're running with the old spec car, as it were. How much input did you have into that decision? Is that you saying, I want to run it, or the team making that decision?
No, it was a team's decision. We tried various things yesterday, and in the end I said, I want to go for it, want to try it. Today it looked quite similar between the old and the new package. We had it at the same time this morning. Mark was like 2/10 quicker now, so it doesn't seem that there's a big advantage in it, which we hoped for.
Took me ages to get my 10,000 votes registered for the Silverstone thing on that survey, but obviously paid off. Montoya with 8/10 of a second advantage, and Coulthard is out on his reconnaissance lap. Missed most of this morning's second session because of a gearbox glitch that switched the car off. So he'll be somewhat unsure as to where the track and car are at, but he should know this place well enough to nail one and get himself a reasonable grid position. This car's been looking like a top 10 car all weekend, certainly in race trim, but they've struggled to really fully deliver up in qualifying trim. But they look like they could well be on for some points tomorrow if they can keep this kind of speed. As they had a great speed last weekend also in Manicourt, just didn't show up because of a poor grid slot.
That's right, qualifying was a bit of a struggle for them in Manicourt last weekend. David Coulthard then re-signed for the 2006 season. That's a real boost for him. The air horns going, supporting him around the track.
Oh, and another man just to have to take a tiny, tiny lift into there. And the front of the car working okay so far. A little bit of understeer through the exit. He'll have to just delay getting on the throttle. Diagonal the straight now to bring it to the left-hand side. About 150 metres before Stowe Corner. There it is, the glorious Stowe just ahead of you. Take a late apex. You've got to be touching just towards the end. And a little bit of oversteer through the middle of the corner. He would have expected that. A blind braking zone down into the first part of Club. Now you have to hurry up and wait through the exit. You can run wide or take a tighter line but get more traction control. Again, the car appearing to work well. A solid first sector time, not that spectacular. Launch it through the Abbey chicane. Wow, that's a lot of curb, DC. Straighten it up. There's a bit of extra space on the outside. Now, not a hint of throttle lift through Bridge Corner. The first part of the complex, about 100 miles an hour, up to 140. Bring it down to 70. Try to cheat across the inside of the curve. Straighten it up for maximum acceleration. Least amount of traction control. Wait, wait, wait. Now you can see it. Nail it. And over the line. Fourth, fifth, and sixth. He won't need top gear before he's completed this lap. Straight off the throttle to save the fuel. And he goes P4, just ahead of Heidfeld and Klein.
He splits the Williams. That's a super lap from David Coulthard. We really enjoyed that one on board most of the way around. And, well, that Beckett's complex is something. It really does take the breath away every time. See the car just wiggling. That's the oversteer that Martin was talking about. The back of the car just wanting to just move out a little bit. So Coulthard really has exceeded expectations. As I said before, he's confirmed with the team for the 2006 season. So that's great stability for them and for him going forward. Real confidence on both sides. He's really pushing this team forward with 17 points so far this season. 6 points finishes, looking good for another one here tomorrow. Plenty of Ferrari fans here this weekend to see Rubens Barrichello. Ferrari scratching their heads still a little bit about where the pace went on race day in France last weekend. It just was not there after Michael Schumacher stuck the car third on the grid. And Rubens Barrichello into his lap. 4 podiums so far this season, just 11 points behind Michael Schumacher. You feel like it's more because it seems Schumacher has done more with this car than Barrichello, but it is still just the 11 points.
Yes, if ever you think Barrichello's going to beat Schumacher, it's here at Silverstone. He does seem so good around here, doesn't he? He knows the place anyway because he came through the British National Series, and he had a very good first sector, just about matching current comfortable pole sitter Montoya. So Barrichello in the middle of a handy lap as he heads up to the Abbey chicane, about 185 miles an hour, and there's a lot of grip in there, and it's a bit of a Yahoo moment as you just stamp on the throttle pedal and head down towards Bridge Corner. It's got a slight bit of banking in it to help you round, and still he's staying pretty close to Montoya. This will be a comfortable P2 at the moment.
And a dramatic win back here in 2003. Remember passing Kimi Raikkonen at huge speed through Bridge Corner. A very heroic move that was. Certainly his finest hour in a Formula One car. Good memories of Silverstone across the line. Is today going to be a good memory? Well, it's certainly a pretty competitive lap from Barrichello. Just over half a second shy of Montoya. How would you evaluate Barrichello's season? How many out of 10 for him?
I'm just going to evaluate the end of the lap. It was horrible. The car looked truly horrible through the last 2 corners, like it was really giving up its grip. Rubens, I think he's done well, kept his head down, his mouth shut. Michael, he should have beaten Michael in Indianapolis and didn't do it. Again, he's an 8.5. The same as Coulthard, actually. I'd give DC an 8.5 for a very, very solid season and a couple of races that are some of the best I've ever seen him drive. But Ted has some news.
Yeah, down at Sauber, some of our more regular viewers might notice that the Sauber have got new front wings here this weekend. They only arrived this morning because they were held up in customs on their way from Switzerland, which is weird. I'm not quite sure what customs officers thought they were going to hide in there or something. But anyway, they only arrived this morning, and it's more or less a copy of the Ferrari front wing. They tested it in Jerez and it works, so they put it on.
Most unusual to be putting pieces on. I mean, you're driving, whenever you step over the side of a Formula One car, you're driving a living prototype. They're always changing, but not often bolting on new front wings when you're so far into a Grand Prix weekend.
Well, this has been the fastest pace of development ever seen in Formula One. The amount of changes each team has made to its car throughout the year has been totally dramatic. Some of the cars completely transformed since the first Grand Prix in Australia back in March. On board then with Jacques Villeneuve, twice a winner here at Silverstone in his Williams days. Recently, as I said, last couple of Grand Prix outshone Felipe Massa. Massa currently 8th on a 1:22.4. Had that impediment of having to go out early in qualifying. A little bit of a lock-up then for Villeneuve front left, but it's been a pretty tidy lap so far. He is matched his teammate in the first sector. He's quicker than the second sector. It's going to be quicker than Massa this lap. It's going to be 6-7, somewhere around there. 4th, it's a brilliant final sector for Jacques Villeneuve. He goes 4th behind Montoya, Barrichello, Sato. Then it's Villeneuve 4th, Webber 5th, and Coulthard in 6th place.
I'm surprised they're not clapping and cheering a bit louder than that. We don't know what his fuel load is, of course, but Villeneuve's really beginning to get on terms, isn't he, with this car and this season? And of course, BMW are taking over the team. They're fighting for a slot there, and in the assumption that BMW could, or if they can, contractually take Heidfeld with them, you've got to assume there may be only 1 slot left for Villeneuve and Massa, and that's a great response from Jacques Villeneuve.
And marks out of 10 for his first half year briefly.
His first quarter of year was dismal, wasn't it? But it's 7.5, I would say, for JV.
Okay, here's Ralf Schumacher, first of the 2 Toyotas we've seen here this afternoon. Caught a quick word with Mike Gascoigne, the technical director, who's transformed this team in the last couple of seasons into a competitive front-running outfit. Based in Cologne, of course, Gascoigne commuting from his home in Oxfordshire. And Ralf Schumacher, the only one of the Michelin runners to go with the hard tyre here at Silverstone this weekend. Everybody else has gone with a softer tyre. And Ralf doesn't seem to have any problems getting temperature into it, I'm told. And he's certainly been looking pretty racy all weekend. He's certainly carrying an enormous amount of speed there into Priory in 90-mile-an-hour corner. And he's monstering Brooklands as well. That's a 60-mile-an-hour corner. Looks substantially faster behind the wheel of this Toyota. Out of left field, just waiting to pick up the throttle and go across Woodcote corner, 160 miles an hour as he swings into the view of the main grandstand crowd here, and he goes fourth, dropping Villeneuve back into fifth place. There you can see the top six, and it's extremely tight between Barrichello, Sato, Ralf Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve. Just 4 cars separated by 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, slower than Sato, surprisingly. The Toyotas look very fast this morning. Jarno Trulli, the qualifying specialist, yet to come in the other Toyota. But it's so frustrating not really knowing how much fuel. I don't say that tomorrow because I like the uncertainty of it all, but in qualifying it's so difficult to read who's getting the job done and who's not. And Fisichella is the fastest man on the track in the final sector. That's his outlap. So he's pretty much on it, isn't he?
Yeah, certainly got to push hard on the outlap to get the temperature into tyres. Different teams have been experiencing that problem. This is only the 4th time this season that Giancarlo Fisichella has had a decent qualifying slot, because he's had a lot of retirements and problems, which has meant he's gone out early on Saturday and then he's been playing catch-up for the rest of the weekend. And look at this, he's already ahead of Juan Montoya. It's between Renault and McLaren here this weekend for the victory, as it has been for most of this season so far. The form book in pre-season testing carried through the first half of the championship, but it's really all been Alonso and Raikkonen. It's not been Fisichella and Montoya, and yet here in qualifying so far at Silverstone, it is between Montoya and Fisichella, and Fisichella on target to try and knock Montoya off that provisional pole slot.
The car looks to be working well, it's nicely balanced, but I don't think he made the apex in the first part of the Abbey chicane, and that's why he's lost the time. Can he improve in these final 2 corners? 3/3 of a second's a lot to ask, especially when you're counter-steering into the corner and losing even more time. So at the end of the lap's not been as good. Surely it's a P2 rather than a P1 for Fisichella, and in fact it was so bad at the end, it was P3's drop behind Barrichello. That lap absolutely fell apart.
And that was what I was saying earlier on about some of the Michelins, the final sector, the tyres have been going away. We saw that Fisichella was the fastest man on the track on his outlap towards the end. Martin spotted that, and it obviously took a bit too much out of the tyre, because that final sector was the one that let him down.
Yeah. You've got a certain amount of performance with the freshness of the new tyres, and you've got to make sure you're using it in the right part, and he was too hot out of the box, too hot out of the pit lane. And did he pay the price toward that's cost him at least a row, if not 2 rows on the grid, I'd imagine. Fisichella with a difficult season. I don't think we didn't give a mark for Ralf, did we? Which he's the mystery man, he disappears from time to time. Ralf's kind of a 7.5. Fisichella, who started the year with a solid victory in slightly lucky circumstances, but boy did he drive nicely. Since then he's had a difficult time, an unlucky time. Not sure he's absolutely been able to make the best of it. So Fizzy's an 8 for me so far this season.
Yeah, Giancarlo Fisichella, 9th in the World Championship at the moment, 4 points finishes, but also 4 retirements. As I say, it's really compromised him in qualifying. It's all had a knock-on effect of this new rules package for 2005. Here's David Coulthard then. He's currently 8th fastest, and he's talking with Louise Goodman.
Nice one, David.
Thank you. It was actually, it didn't start that well. We're in a routine of going 6th, 7th for the turn 1 and then back down to 6th again, but it didn't happen, and there's nothing worse as a driver. You're approaching a corner expecting the shift, and then it didn't come, so I compromised a little bit in the first turn, but rest of the lap, not too bad, certainly better than we had yesterday.
Your car, generally speaking, other than a slight glitch this morning, does look to be pretty competitive here.
Yeah, I think yesterday we looked pretty strong, and I would expect that pace to come back a little bit in the race, but I think you can see from the sort of times we were doing in quali, as much as we can expect to be somewhere in the same area in fuel, then we're down a little bit, so that's definitely our weak area still.
Yes, obviously still got some kind of gearbox glitch. You were saying it didn't go up to top gear going into turn 1, so therefore a little bit out of sync to having to try to pull down the gear. But the car goes into Parc Fermé this evening, so it's not that easy now to start getting in and fixing those problems.
Well, I was in the Red Bull garage after pre-practice this morning with my old man, and looking at the car, and they were changing just about everything they could except the engine on that, because obviously the engine change would mean a 10-place penalty. Trying to figure out why this morning it went from 6th to 7th, and then literally the engine just cut out. It was some form of electrical glitch. As I said before, they changed everything, but clearly there's something still going on as he looks for top gear.
Yeah, it could be a wiring loom, sometimes on the steering wheel. You're obviously just seeing a replay of slightly earlier action. Ted has some news.
I'm down at BAR.
Jenson Button sitting in the car, impassive, just putting on his white gloves. And I can tell you, Martin, he's been struggling with understeer this morning. Both BARs struggling with understeer on the first flying lap. But crucially, Jenson's been able to handle it better than Takuma Sato. Now, in the morning practice, they've added as much front downforce as they possibly can, which is what you do when you want to get rid of understeer. Let's see whether it works for Jenson Button after Jarno Trulli's lap.
Yes, Trulli now just beginning his hot lap. Jenson then will be released from the pits behind Trulli once he's past the pit exit. And surely we should be seeing a spectacular lap time here.
Yep, here's Jarno Trulli. He's been pretty sensational, particularly in qualifying this season. In races too, 6 points finishes, 3 of which on the podium, and 3 lost podiums, things like the brake failure in Canada when he was heading for yet another podium this season. It's been a real turnaround year this so far for Jarno Trulli, but he won't want to remember last year's Silverstone, where he had a huge suspension failure in the Renault and a big crash as a result of it. Here he is, though, 3/100ths of a second only behind Juan Montoya. And why is this guy so quick on a single lap, Martin?
Because he's accurate and he's on the throttle hard and early, and he's got it nicely set up. His race pace doesn't always work out. It's a bit of a mobile chicane, wasn't he, last weekend in Manicourt? But just flexing his fingers, getting ready for probably 5 downshifts and hanging on to the edge of that sawtooth curve, and already full throttle. An upshift right in the heart of, I mean, that's, imagine when you used to have to do that with a gear stick in your hand, trying to shift in a corner with all of those loading. But he's now beginning to fight the car as the tyres, the fresh grip of the new tyres is going away from him. Now he's going to have to wrestle it to the finish.
Yeah, this final sector problem for the Michelin seems to have affected Jarno Trulli as well. What's he done as he goes across the start-finish line? He goes second, and in fact, that is a very impressive lap indeed from Jarno Trulli. It looked like he was losing a little bit in that final sector, but it didn't show up on the stopwatch, did it? That was the quickest final sector anybody has done so far, and that puts Toyota provisionally on the front row of the grid as the BAR mechanics have a laugh down there in the garage. They're based just a few miles away from here in Brackley. And here is Britain's, well, England's #1. Certainly David Coulthard would argue with that from a British perspective, but a lot of fans here for Jenson Button, particularly after last year. Listen to the crowd as he goes into the 160 miles an hour Copse corner. Here we are on board then with Jenson Button. Sato is in 5th place at the moment on a 1:21.1, and Jenson will want to get himself up amongst the front runners here.
Car with looking reasonably soft and lots of roll at the back, but Jenson's so smooth you sometimes wonder if this is the hot lap or the out lap. He just doesn't hustle the car. He likes to just flow with it and keep the minimum speed up. He's lost a fraction on Montoya and Trulli, but he's 2/10 faster than his teammate in the first sector. A nice wide turn in so he can get the car straight nice and early for the second part of Club Corner. And the back end just trying to step out a little bit as he brings it to the right-hand side for the Abbey chicane. I bet he doesn't take as much curb as the others because that's just not his driving style, and that's why he can cope with a bit more understeer. All the cars easily full throttle now through a bridge corner, and again a lovely wide entry into the final part of the complex, carrying tremendous speed. He's the fastest man so far.
Yep, 2 sectors down, just 1 to go. Around about 20 seconds separating Jenson Button from possibly pole position on his home soil. The Union Jacks are flying in the grandstands below us as he comes out of Woodcote and goes across the line, and he goes fastest! What a lap from Jenson Button. The crowd love it. The mechanics love it too. A 1:20.2 for Jenson Button. I'd love to hear what he's got to say to his team at the moment, but it's not all over yet. We've still got Michael Schumacher, Kimi Raikkonen. We know we'll have to go back 10 places from wherever he qualifies, and Alonso as well. He could, either Schumacher or Alonso could nick the pole from Jenson Button. If he could get it, it would be his second this season and his first on home soil. That was the reaction from the crowd to a really splendid lap from Jenson.
Yes, he built on it, and there were times there where he was a good half a car's width away from the line that the other drivers are taking, and he never looked ragged. He just had it under control and just took nice wide entry points, got it straightened up and got tremendous acceleration. Michael Schumacher on track. for his hot lap.
So going to try and steal the pole away from Button before he does. Quickly marks out of 10 for Jenson Button first half year.
Again, another driver who's not really had chance to show us anything. He's really coming on strong now, though, isn't he? But an 8.5 if you look at the first half season in total.
Yeah, kept his head in BAR's difficulties, doing very well indeed, Jenson Button. Here, though, is the 7 times world champion, 3 times a winner here at Silverstone, Michael Schumacher, into the Stowe corner where he had his accident many years ago. 1/1000th of a second down, and he's trying so hard with this car.
The problem he's got there is his left-hand tyres are now dirty, and he'll have to fight the car harder, and he'll be slightly slower through this right-hand of the second part of club. So a tenth or two just ebbing away there.
He's using a different tyre from Jenson Button. Button on the Michelin, of course. Ferrari using the Bridgestone tyre here this weekend. They're using the harder compound Bridgestone as well, so it has different characteristics from the Michelin, and that you see is how much Michael Schumacher has lost in the middle sector. He was just 1,000th down after the first. Now he's lost half a second in the middle sector. That means Button has got 1 man separating him from pole position. A couple of bites of the cherry in the final corner from Michael Schumacher as he comes out of Woodcote corner and goes to the line. Plenty of Ferrari support here. Plenty of people love him, but they won't love that final sector, Martin.
No, it was all at sea. He lost something in the middle of the lap, and then like Barrichello in the sister Ferrari, all at sea, but he didn't make as good a job of handling it. So Michael then way down the field. It looked horrible through the last 2 corners, and now
there's Kimi Raikkonen starting his flying lap into Copse corner. Here's a man with an awful lot on his mind. Whatever happens here, he's going to have to go 10 places back on the grid. Same scenario as the French Grand Prix last weekend. He hangs it all out because he wants to be as far up the grid as he possibly can be. He'll want to see P1 at the end of this lap because that'll mean P11 and an opportunity to attack. He knows his teammate Montoya is going to be at the front of the grid tomorrow. It is all to play for tactically, and Raikkonen is sticking it on the line here. He's almost 0.4 of a second faster than Jenson Button. Remember though, he'll go 10 places back from wherever he gets.
Well wide in Stowe corner, just about got away with it, but he would have given a little bit away there, but so fast down to the first sector. But surely he's not going to go light. He's got to carry some fuel to get him a good distance into this Grand Prix. But you're right, P11 would be the best, would at least save him something. He was 13th on the grid last weekend, finished 2nd. If he can get up to 11, he's got a half a chance still of winning the Grand Prix. Different line altogether to Button through the final part of the complex, but still 1/3 of a second up.
This is to put pressure on Alonso, who's now warming up for his flying lap. He'll be the last man to go. He'll be told what Raikkonen's done. He wants to put as much pressure as he possibly can on him to remind him he'll come through the field tomorrow. This has been a special one from Kimi Raikkonen. He goes across the line just under 0.3 of a second ahead of Jenson Button, and Ron Dennis loves it. Now last weekend, Martin, remember in France, he was right up the front of the grid, and it turned out he went 9 laps longer in the race than the guys he was racing against. So quick was he in qualifying. It really was an amazing effort. I wonder if he's done the same here again today and carrying that extra fuel. We'll find out in the Grand Prix tomorrow. Here's a man with who's going to try and snatch the pole then from Jenson Button.
Well, Raikkonen's a 10 out of 10 driver for this year, no doubt about it, and so is this man, Fernando Alonso. He's been supreme. He's managed to keep himself in the hunt at every kind of racetrack all over the world that we've been so far this year. Always with carrying a bundle of understeer, the front sliding around, but somehow he manages to keep good apex speed at the same time. Don't know how, but it works for him.
Well, he's a 10th down on Raikkonen after 1 sector. Very quickly, Michael Schumacher, we missed him out. Marks out of 10. People at home will want to know what you think.
9 for Michael. I think he's put in some stellar performances from time to time, but Alonso now, can he beat Button? I tell you what, that's going to be close, James.
It certainly is. Jenson Button, a 1:20.207, and Alonso is 0.3 faster than him after the first sector, so he certainly was on target after sector 1. He's coming towards the end of sector 2, rips underneath bridge, a blur to all the people standing underneath, and he's a 100th up on Raikkonen. Never mind Jenson Button. This looks like it's going to nick the pole away from Jenson Button. Remember, Raikkonen will go back 10 places. This has been another one of those laps from Fernando Alonso, who seems to qualify so very well. He's never raced here well. 10th is his best result. This is to set himself up for tomorrow for victory at Silverstone. He goes across the line. line 2/100ths of a second faster than Kimi Räikkönen, and that is a net pole. He takes it away from Jenson Button. Kimi Räikkönen will go down to 12th on the grid, so it was a double whammy as far as Kimi Räikkönen's concerned. And live now is a disappointed man, I imagine, Jenson Button. He is still on the front row of the grid, but it isn't pole for his home Grand Prix, Louise.
Jens, he's nicked your pole.
I know, it's better than I imagined anyway. I thought we'd be probably on the second row. That was my aim, so it's good to be on the first row. Räikkönen's got to go back to 12th on the grid, so it's not going to help his chances.
So you're not too disappointed, and rightly so, because you've got a fantastic chance starting from there, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we knew that the Renaults would be good competition and the McLarens would also, but to be on the front row, I'm very happy with. We didn't actually expect to be on the front row, so yeah, I'm pretty chuffed and looking forward to tomorrow.
We obviously saw Kimi come through from a relatively low grid position at the last race. Do you think he'll be doing the same again, or do you think it's really going to be Fernando that you're battling against?
I think he will be very quick. I don't think their plan went quite as they wanted to with McLaren. I'm sure they wanted Montoya on pole to slow everyone down, but that hasn't happened. So we're more competitive here as well than Manicourt. So he's gonna have to fight his way past rather than having it easy like it was in Manicourt.
Well done.
Cheers. Great result for Jenson Button. He's on the front row of the grid for tomorrow's British Grand Prix. Trust me, it's going to be a thriller. With Räikkönen coming through the field, he's got a very fast car indeed. It's going to be a thriller.
You are back with us at Silverstone. Great support for Jenson Button. He has been playing down his chances of a victory here, but Jenson Button will start tomorrow's Foster's British Grand Prix on the front row alongside World Championship leader Fernando Alonso. Right behind him, Montoya in that very lively McLaren. Another fine qualifying performance from Jarno Trulli, the Italian, in the Toyota. Barrichello, top Ferrari runner, he really loves this place. Fisichella was our driver of the day last year in the British Grand Prix, had a great run in the Sauber. Sato, 7th in the BR. Behind him, Ralf Schumacher, the brothers together, Michael Schumacher. He will not be happy just making the top 10 ahead of Jacques Villeneuve in the Sauber. We move down. Webber in the Williams battling away with that sore hip as well. And Kimi Räikkönen, what a magnificent qualifying lap. But, well, you do not pass go for Kimi at the moment. He has to go back 10 places because of that rule. If you change an engine, you get demoted 10 places. Watch for a great charge from the Finn tomorrow. Then David Coulthard, a very tidy lap from David. We'll talk about that with Tony Jardine and Mark Blundell in just a moment. Heidfeld, Klein had to go out early for the Red Bull. Massa in the Sauber, and Karthikeyan and the two Minardis, and Montero down the back because he too has had an engine change. Excellent qualifying session. And Tony, I want to talk to you first of all about Juan Pablo Montoya. He had to do a job for the team knowing that Kimi was going to be -10 no matter what.
He did, and he knows his way around here, but it didn't go quite as well as he wanted. Especially, he had to go out early, and this is the disadvantage. This is the disadvantage of the qualifying system. He went out with hydraulics problems in the French Grand Prix early on. He had to start the qualifying session early on, but he was really on it. There's Adrian Newey, the technical director, looking on, and he stayed up there for quite a while, but he didn't get right at the front as they wanted him to. He's on the second row.
He's in the position to influence the Grand Prix tomorrow, no doubt about that. David Coulthard paid, didn't he? The old gearbox was still giving him trouble early in the lap, it seems.
I think he still have a couple of little gremlins in there, but DC is still putting in a good performance. I think, you've got to bear in mind that this car is not the optimum car. It's not what they really feel they can move forward with throughout the season. They're looking towards next year to get their own new car in place. David just solid, and I think he's going to be solid tomorrow. He is Mr. Consistency in the race.
And I believe David Coulthard is now with Louise Goodman.
Yeah, he is indeed. David, just outside the top 10, how does that result sit with you?
I'm disappointed not to be in front of Webber and the Williams, because I think that we have the pace on them this weekend, so we needed a couple of tenths really to do that. Otherwise, I think that's as far up as we could be this weekend.
You mentioned to me when we spoke just after your lap about the problem that you'd had shifting with the gearbox. How much of a concern is that for you? Because your car is obviously into Parc Fermé now.
Yeah, no, it wasn't actually a technical fault. It was just that as we increase the RPM that's available for qualifying, then it means that where you're used to making some shifts, suddenly they don't come because the wind and things like that. But you know, part of how you drive a car, as you know, is with a routine of knowing what, you know, weight transfer when you brake, also the effect you get when you change down the gear, and I didn't get that in 2 corners. So those 2 corners I lost time.
That's great. There's nothing to worry about. Thanks, David.
No, we're in good shape, I think, apart from that.
Thank you very much indeed to David Coulthard. When you rejoin us at Silverstone, we'll be going to the press conference.
Meanwhile in Dallas.
Fernando, it looked like a great lap in every sector.
Yeah, it was really good. A little bit unexpected, this pole position, but the car this morning felt much better than yesterday. The team did an incredible job last night with some different changes we did, and the car fell straight away quite quick this morning. So I was P1 in the last session in P4. So, you know, I think we were in qualifying very confident, but probably not that confident to get the pole. But it's obviously a great result for us.
Well, coming off a great result, obviously, Renault's home Grand Prix in France, but this in some ways is another home race for you. Talk about the atmosphere here and coming to Silverstone, leading the championship as you are.
Yes, it's fantastic. Obviously, the 70% of the team are English people, so for us it's also the home Grand Prix here in Silverstone for all the guys. They sleep at home, half of the people, so it's a really interesting Grand Prix for everybody in the team. And yeah, always when we are here, the drivers, all the members of the team, we are together in the factory a few days before the Grand Prix. So I think the atmosphere there was fantastic because we are leading both championships, and so far the weekend started in a good way as well. So everything that we can ask, we have it.
And your thoughts on the race tomorrow? Strategy? Obviously, Kimi may be on a different fuel load.
Yeah, I think we will have again different strategies. All the teams, I think, maybe more similar here than in many courses that we saw some people doing very different strategies. But anyway, the race is always very long here in Silverstone. It can happen anything. Hopefully the weather will stay constant and dry, and we can have a good race. But I'm really confident for sure. What happened to Kimi is not fair, and I think will be, you know, again problems for him. But we have to do our race, our maximum, like we did in quali, and so far we have the pole on the pocket.
Thank you, Fernando. Kimi, commiserations to you for the second successive race. An oil pump problem this morning is necessitating an engine change and having to take that 10-place penalty on the grid.
Yeah, it's not the ideal situation again, but it's nothing what I can do. I just can drive as quickly as I can, and then we see tomorrow what happens. But for sure, it's not the way to try to win the championship if you take every time 10 places penalty. So we're not that quick in the end to give so much to the other guys.
Well, we saw in France your strategy there, running a lot of fuel in that first stint there. You picked up some places as they all came into the pits. What's it going to be like tomorrow?
We will see what happens, but it really depends what happens in the front. If the front people will not disappear as quickly as in France, I think so. We have very strong position, but I don't know what they are doing. We only know what we are doing. So I think so. We have had very good car here always, and the car was pretty good today. So let's wait and see.
Given the setup you had for qualifying, your lap looked pretty good.
Yeah, I ran wide on one of the quick corners on the end of the back straight because I think so the biggest problem in here was that what happened to us, it happened in the last practice, and then we didn't put the new tires, and it was really difficult to know how the car will be in the qualifying. We were guessing a little bit, and at least it went pretty much okay, and the car was not too bad, so it was okay.
Thank you very much, Kimi. Well, Jenson, here we are at the British Grand Prix, and you're on the front row.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. We didn't quite expect it, so it's fantastic to be at the front. I think we can do some pretty good things from there.
Everyone wants to know, what do you think you can actually do? How quick is the car? It looked to be a little bit down on the first sector there, but very quick relative to the Renault sectors 2 and 3.
Yeah, we've struggled a little bit through Beckett's and also Copse turn 1, so that is a little bit of a worry for the race. But apart from that, the car's been working very well in low-speed corners and the rest of the high-speed corners around the circuit. So, you know, it's nice to be in this position and to be at the front, able to fight with the Renaults and the McLarens, because we've had a pretty tough time of it. So yeah, it's nice to be up there, and I think it can only get better from there, I think.
And the British crowd behind you, as they will be tomorrow?
They've been great. You know, it's great to have so many fans here. I've never, well, there's only one time this year that I've seen a crowd like this, and that was in Barcelona. So it's great to see so many fans out there, not just British, but from all around the world. So yeah, hopefully we can put on a good show for them, and I'm sure we can do that.
Let's hope he can. Best ever British qualifying performance from Jenson Button, third last year, second on the grid this time round. I'd like to talk to you about a fellow who's going to be very close to him on the grid, Jarno Trulli. And he is so good in qualifying, and he's done it again for Toyota.
He has, and the thing is that Ralf Schumacher is really in his shadow now. That's the thing, he's emerged as the absolute team leader, and it's not just because of his qualifying performances either. He's had those 2 wonderful second places, he had the podium in Spain as well. He's done a lot of testing and a lot of racing here at Silverstone. You know, he is a complete racing driver now. They used to criticize him as just being a qualifier and not a great racer, but he's racing extremely well too.
Good for him after that massive 180-mile accident he had here last year as well in the Renault.
If you remember that, and we said, Mark and I went over and did the concert afterwards, and he came on stage after the accident. He was a little bit shaken, but he was fine, and he did his business. That was a big accident coming through Bridge.
Sure. Well, we spoke a lot about Jenson Button. We said he might have been playing down his chances. I mean, he might have been kidding a lot of us, because he was superb out there. So was the VAR.
Well, I think he had a little bit of Nigel Mansell people power, didn't he? He raised to the occasion. And I truthfully think that Jenson did an outstanding job from his point of view in the cockpit of that race car. Let's wait and see what fuel load he's got on board, because he's significantly quicker than his teammate Sato. But at the end of the day, super smooth lap. And as Martin Brundle said in the commentary, Jenson probably is the smoothest guy out there on the race circuit. He's a pleasure to watch.
Yeah, I think they all appreciated that performance as well, didn't they? And it's so infuriating, isn't it? We're all playing that guessing game about how much fuel they've got on board.
Well, it is a bit of a difficulty for everybody to try and work out, and there is a little bit of an excitement when it comes to Sunday afternoon to see who goes into the pits first, but I still truthfully would love to see outright performance and 100% effort and low fuel.
Okay, so an excellent performance from BAR. Let's check on what Nick Fry has to say about it.
Well, Nick, for a moment, did you think that you might have pole there?
Well, you know, we thought for a moment, yes, we did, but actually it's not so important for us. You know, first 2 rows of the grid with the amount of fuel we've got on board is perfect, so we're very happy.
Do you know who these people are honking for? It's not Michael Schumacher, is it?
No. Great support from Jenson, and he really has driven superbly this weekend. Those of you who are watching the in-car shots can see just how smooth he is, and you know, he's got a good chance tomorrow.
Really? I mean, how is the car looking? Jenson talking down his chances earlier in the weekend.
Yeah, no, we've got to be realistic. The McLaren especially is very fast indeed, and they've probably got the best car overall at the moment. But we're in with a good chance, and you know, we'd hope to get him on the podium.
Thanks, Nick.
Jenson Button very much in the mix as things stand, and as things stand, although it's dangerous to say it about this guy, Michael Schumacher has a lot of ground to make up. He doesn't like this place, Tony. I don't think that would have improved today either.
No, he doesn't. I mean, he had his big accident here in 1999. He's had the 3 wins here, but he still appreciates the British audience. He loves the fans. He said they're the most knowledgeable around the world of all the races that he goes to. He also tries hard here, but he's not having a good time, is he?
Made a mistake, didn't he, here?
Well, it's not just that. This car is more complicated, as Ross Brawn has said to us repeatedly this weekend. You know, we got it, look at that, getting it right off on the grass there. He's trying really to make up for the deficiencies in the car there, and it's just not working at the moment. Certainly in qualifying the race, it'll be better.
Okay, let's hear from Michael Schumacher now, shall we?
Do you know what happened in the 2nd and 3rd sectors, Michael? Was it the car getting away from you? Was it wind? Was it the tyres giving up? What?
We had a problem with rear tyre pressures in particular. Yeah.
What happened? They dropped down low? They weren't correctly done in the first place?
Naturally and logically, if you be good in the first sector and you start to struggle by the end, they're too high, and that's what happened.
Okay, so what does that mean then for the race? Clearly you can adjust the tyre pressures, one thing you can do in Parc Fermé, so what does that mean for tomorrow?
I mean, the race performance anyway is better than what you see in qualifying, but realistically we should have been further up front to then have a reasonable race. So now it's obviously more difficult.
How do you see it going with Rubens though? That should be a good fight between you.
I'm not so sure. That's what I need to watch, honestly, but we'll find out what happens.
You're vaguely happy with it? Is it just one of those things that happens? Looking forward to tomorrow?
I anyway look forward for tomorrow, yeah. I mean, I have been in worse positions and still do a good race, so let's just wait and see.
And Kimi's going to have to come and overtake you at some point, isn't he?
Yeah, poor Kimi has to do this again, yeah.
Not the happiest Michael Schumacher we've ever seen, that's for sure. And poor Kimi, he was saying that. I mean, Fernando Alonso saying it's not fair what has happened to Kimi for the second weekend running, namely going 10 places down the grid. But those are the rules as things stand.
They are the rules, they're the regulations, but it's not fair on Kimi Raikkonen as an individual. You know, as a driver there, he's put maximum effort in. Truthfully, he should be up in the front row there. And because he's got no engine power, because there's something gone wrong on that front, he's penalised and he's 10 places back. It isn't really representing who's out there to try and win the World Championship. These two guys, Alonso and Raikkonen, should be tooth and nail, hammering it out, you know, and these problems get in the way of a World Championship.
Last weekend, Ron Dennis, his boss, described his lap at Manicourt as absolutely magnificent. I get the feeling he'll be reaching for the superlatives again after this one.
Well, you know, he's got so much pace that for sure he's going to just like pour his way through that grid. Michael Schumacher there saying, oh yeah, he's going to have to come by me. That won't be a problem. The pace between those two guys is significant.
I know we're saying that has improved the spectacle, but really Raikkonen was an odds-on favourite coming here, and his whole weekend has now been compromised again.
And I think what will be worrying for McLaren is that Renault made changes overnight to the car, and the car is that much quicker. And I think Kimi Raikkonen, to come from behind, he's still going to have to catch Alonso and then get past him, and then we're in for a real treat, because I think the cars are going to be quite equal.
Well, Fernando Alonso has never finished in the top 10 at the British Grand Prix. He's in the mood and in a position to change that. Great effort again from our World Championship leader, Tony.
No, it's superb, and you know, he's got to be the fans' second favourite behind Jenson Button here. I mean, he lives in Oxford. The great thing is, he says, I can just go home from here to bed. It's about
a win for the local boy, perhaps. You never know.
Absolutely local boy, and we are talking about essentially a British team here, although it is Renault and it's French. 70% of them, they're all cheering away. There's the boys, they're all local people from around here, so it's great for them, and Alonso appreciates all the hard work that they put in. So to get that 6th pole position, superb effort.
So how do you see things sort of shaping up for the British Grand Prix tomorrow then?
Well, I think you've got that young man we've just been watching. Alonso is going to go out into the front and lead the field. Raikkonen's going to be very powerful coming through the grid, but you know, although the pace of the cars might be similar, as Tony says, I think you're going to have a very difficult task to catch Alonso. I think he's going to be away.
That's true. Now, everybody out there, all our ITV British viewers, they're going to go on then. Jenson Button, what can he really do here? Just for once, Tony. Put your neck on the line here.
He can get onto the podium. He can really get onto the podium. But as we always said, and as Alonso said, anything can happen at Silverstone. So this isn't just the complex nature of the track. Suddenly the weather can change and the whole race can turn on its head.
Yeah, podium for him. Are you going to advance the stakes on that at all?
Alonso, Button, Raikkonen.
We'll do us fine. Should be a fantastic race. We look forward to chatting to you again tomorrow. To Tony the Mark, thank you very much indeed. We have more motorsport action coming your way right here on ITV1 after the news. That is Lee Mackenzie following the GP2 series. Watch out for a new winner in the 5th round at Manicourt. Now, in cycling, the Tour de France has reached Germany's Black Forest. Stage 8 takes them from Pforzheim to Gérardmer. That is live on ITV2 at 3. The highlights also on 2 at 7:15 this evening. And also on ITV2. Be sure to join Matt Smith, 9:15 this evening. Big Fight Live from Nottingham, featuring championship fights for light welterweight Junior Witter and super middleweight Carl Froch. And tomorrow our pre-race show starts at midday. Michael Schumacher talking exclusively to ITV F1. The world champion hasn't written off his chances of keeping his title.
It's obviously much smaller than any other of the last 5 seasons, no worries, and this is pretty clear, but there's no reason to yet give up.
Martin's world is turned upside down as he hitches a lift with the red arrows. Be sure to climb on board with ITV Sport midday tomorrow. It is always a great ride, the British Grand Prix. Jenson Button on the front row. Go, Jenson, go. Cheerio.